The stench of burnt oil and alien spices permeated the dimly lit Black Nebula Tavern, nestled deep beneath the industrial city on Zetran Delta. The electronic music screeched overhead, competing with the cacophony of various species bartering, arguing, and occasionally threatening one another. Derek Reeves, an Earth diplomat disguised as a merchant, nursed a viscous blue drink at the counter while keeping a wary eye on the exits. It was his third day planetside, and so far, his mineral rights negotiation mission had progressed at an agonizingly slow pace. The Vexari, with their rigid hierarchical society and complex honor codes, proved to be difficult partners. His assigned bodyguard, Commander Kiara Valsher, stood silently beside him, her posture unnaturally straight, hands resting on the plasma blade at her hip. Kiara's skin rippled with a faint purple hue, a sign of alertness in Vexari physiology, as her four eyes scanned the tavern methodically. The dim lighting caught the ridge patterns on her forearms, intricate markings denoting her warrior lineage. "You're not drinking," Derek observed, lifting his glass. "Is that a Vexari rule? Or are you just afraid you'll let your guard down around a weak human like me?" Her skin shifted momentarily to a deeper purple. "I am on duty," she replied, her voice low and even. "The protection protocol forbids consumption of intoxicants." Derek downed his drink and grimaced. "This tastes like engine coolant mixed with fermented fungus. You're not missing anything." Three draconian traders hunched over a datapad at a nearby table, their six-armed silhouettes casting long shadows. A pair of Zetran locals huddled in a corner booth, their translucent skin glowing with bioluminescent patterns. Derek had never seen so many different species in one room before, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "I count 17 armed individuals in this establishment," Kiara stated matter-of-factly, her lower eyes still scanning while her upper set remained fixed on a group of mercenaries by the door. 17? That seems excessive even for a place like this." Derek ordered another drink with a hand gesture. "How many of them do you think you could take in a fight?" The corner of Kiara's mouth twitched, the closest thing to a smile he'd seen from her. "All of them, if necessary." The bartender, a bulbous creature with translucent skin revealing shifting internal organs, slid another blue drink toward Derek. He took a generous swig, feeling the burn travel down his throat and the immediate lightheadedness that followed. "The Proxima mining rights will be difficult to secure," Derek mused, feeling emboldened by the alcohol. "Your superiors seem determined to block Earth's proposal at every turn." Kiara's posture stiffened further. "The mineral deposits are sacred to many Vexari clans. It is not simply a matter of economics." Sacred deposits of thorium and uranium?" Derek scoffed. "Seems convenient that your religious sites also happen to be on the most valuable real estate on the planet." "You would not understand our ways," she replied coldly. "Just as I would not understand why humans waste resources on recreational intoxication." Derek spun on his stool to face her directly. His eyes traveled down her imposing form, the ceremonial armor fitted perfectly to her athletic frame, the way she stood in perfect balance despite the heavy gear, and, "You have a really nice butt," he blurted out, immediately regretting the words as they left his mouth. Time seemed to freeze. The tavern's ambient noise faded into the background. Kiara's skin flickered rapidly between purple and a deep pinkish red, a Vexari blush. Derek realized with fascination. Her four eyes blinked in rapid succession, the inner lids snapping open and closed. Before Derek could formulate an apology, her hand moved in a blur. The impact against his cheek sent him reeling, nearly toppling from his stool. The slap echoed through the tavern, drawing curious and amused glances from the patrons. "Ow!" Derek rubbed his cheek, which was already beginning to swell. Despite the pain, he couldn't help but notice the continued ripple of pink across Kiara's skin. "I deserved that." Kiara's attention had already shifted. However, her hand moved to her plasma blade as she surveyed the room with renewed intensity. "We are being watched," she whispered, leaning closer to him. "Is it because I just got slapped by my bodyguard? Because yeah, that would draw attention." "No," she hissed. "3 individuals by the eastern entrance. They have been tracking our movements since we arrived. They are not Vexari, nor Zetran locals." Derek glanced casually in that direction, spotting 3 humanoid figures in unmarked combat gear. "Bounty hunters?" "Likely," Kiara confirmed, her skin now returning to its neutral bluish-purple tone. "We should leave." "I haven't finished my drink," Derek protested weakly, though he was already reaching for his credit chip. "Leave it," Kiara ordered. She gripped his arm with surprising gentleness and guided him toward a service exit at the rear of the establishment. They had barely taken 3 steps when the front doors burst open. The 3 figures Kiara had identified rushed in, weapons drawn. "Where is the human diplomat?" one shouted. "The one carrying the Proxima Code." Derek froze. "Proxima Code? What the hell is that?" Kiara didn't waste time on explanations. With preternatural speed, she flipped a nearby table onto its side for cover, dragging Derek down behind it as energy bolts sizzled overhead. The patrons scattered, some diving for cover, while others drew their own weapons. "Stay down," she commanded, igniting her plasma blade with a distinctive hum. The purple energy field illuminated her face, highlighting the determination in her 4 eyes. "I don't have any Proxima Code," Derek shouted over the chaos. "I'm just here for mining negotiations." "They believe otherwise," Kiara replied grimly. She peered over the table edge, assessing the situation. "When I move, follow closely. Do not stop for any reason." Before Derek could respond, Kiara vaulted over their makeshift barricade. Her plasma blade became a blur of light as she deflected incoming fire with impossible precision. Derek watched in awe as she moved with fluid grace, her combat training evident in every calculated step. "Now!" she called back to him. Heart pounding. Derek scrambled to his feet and raced after her. They weaved through the panicked crowd, Kiara clearing a path with swift, non-lethal strikes. One of the bounty hunters appeared in their path, but Kiara dispatched him with a spinning kick that sent him crashing into a row of bar stools. They burst through the service exit into a narrow alley, reeking of waste and industrial runoff. The 3 moons of Zetran Delta cast long, eerie shadows as they ran, their footsteps echoing off the metal walls of the surrounding structures. "This way," Kiara directed, leading him through a maze of passages. "There is a private docking bay ahead. I have contacts who can provide temporary sanctuary." "Contacts?" Derek panted, struggling to keep pace. "I thought you were exclusively assigned to Earth diplomatic security." Kiara's skin briefly flashed a deeper blue. Embarrassment? "I have operated in various capacities for the Vexari military." They emerged onto a landing platform where a sleek, unmarked shuttle waited. A 6-armed figure stood by the entry ramp, its reptilian features partially hidden beneath a hooded cloak. "Draconian merchant," Kiara acknowledged with a curt nod. "We require passage." The creature's multifaceted eyes gleamed in the moonlight. "Commander Valshar, this is unexpected and expensive. The Vexari High Command will compensate you appropriately," she assured him. "It is not credits that concern me, but the risk." The merchant's eyes shifted to Derek. "Especially when transporting fugitives of such political significance?" Derek stepped forward. "I'm not a fugitive. I'm an Earth diplomat on an official mission. Those people back there are the criminals." The merchant made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Of course. And I am merely a simple trader with no interest in galactic politics." Distant shouts and the sound of approaching footsteps forced the issue. The merchant gestured toward the shuttle with 3 of his arms. "Quickly then. We can discuss payment once we are safely in orbit." They hurried aboard, and the shuttle's engines hummed to life. Derek strapped himself into a passenger seat, while Kiara remained standing, her attention fixed on the view screen, showing the landing platform below. The three bounty hunters emerged just as the shuttle lifted off, their weapons firing uselessly at the rapidly ascending craft. "They seem quite determined," the merchant observed from the pilot's seat. "What exactly have you stolen, Earthman?" "Nothing," Derek insisted. "I don't even know what this Proxima code is." Kiara moved to his side, her expression grave. "Check your diplomatic credentials and equipment. Thoroughly." Derek frowned but complied, emptying his pockets onto a small table. Identification chip, universal translator, diplomatic badge, personal effects. Nothing unusual. "Wait," Kiara said suddenly. She picked up the diplomatic badge, examining it closely. "This has been tampered with." Using the tip of her plasma blade on its lowest setting, she carefully pried open the badge's casing. Inside, nestled among the standard authentication circuitry, was a tiny data chip, no larger than a grain of sand. "The Proxima code," she whispered, her skin paling to a light lavender. Derek stared at the chip in disbelief. "Someone planted that on me? But who and why?" The draconian merchant chuckled, his multiple hands dancing across the shuttle's controls. "It seems you are more valuable than you realize, Earthman. Or perhaps more expendable." "What is this code?" Derek demanded. "What does it do?" Kiara's expression darkened. "If it is what I suspect, it contains classified weapons research. Information that would be extremely damaging if it fell into the wrong hands." She turned to face Derek directly. "Someone has set you up as a scapegoat." "Great," Derek muttered. "So I'm being framed as what, an interstellar spy?" "It appears so," the merchant interjected. "And quite effectively. I might add, those bounty hunters will not be the last to come for you. We need a secure location to examine this chip," Kiara decided. "Somewhere off the grid." The merchant considered this for a moment. "I know of an abandoned mining outpost in the Kellar Range. Remote, defensible, and equipped with basic analysis equipment." Derek looked between them, feeling increasingly out of his depth. "And why would you help us? What's in it for you?" The merchant's alien features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. "Let's just say I have my own reasons to dislike those who would manipulate galactic politics from the shadows. The hegemony has interfered with my business ventures on more than one occasion." "The hegemony?" Derek repeated. "What does the Earth-Vexari Treaty have to do with them?" "Perhaps that is what we will discover," Kiara said, carefully securing the tiny chip in a shielded container from her belt. "For now, we should accept the merchant's offer." The shuttle banked sharply, heading toward the distant mountain range visible on the horizon. Derek slumped in his seat, his mind racing. From a simple mining rights negotiation to interstellar espionage in the span of a single day. And all because he couldn't keep his mouth shut about an alien warrior's posterior. "I'm sorry about that comment earlier," he said quietly to Kiara. "About your, "It is forgotten," she replied stiffly, though her skin betrayed a faint, pinkish tinge. "We have more urgent matters to address." Derek nodded, rubbing his still sore cheek. Still, that was quite a slap. For the briefest moment, Kiara's features softened. "You should consider yourself fortunate. Had we been on Vexari Prime, such a comment would have resulted in a formal duel." "Is that why your skin changed color? Because you were angry?" Kiara hesitated. "Vexari dermal chromatophores respond to various emotional states. Anger is not what I experienced." Before Derek could press further, the merchant announced their approach to the mining outpost. The shuttle descended into a narrow valley, touching down on a crude landing pad adjacent to a cluster of prefabricated structures. "We have arrived," the merchant declared. "I would advise against external communications. The outpost shielding should mask your presence, but any outgoing signals could be traced." Kiara nodded. "We understand. Thank you for your assistance." Do not thank me yet, the merchant replied enigmatically. The galaxy is in a precarious balance. Commander Valshar, what you discover here may tip it one way or another. He gestured toward the largest structure. The main facility has power and basic amenities. I will return in 2 planetary cycles, if you are still alive. With that cheerful parting, the merchant lifted off, leaving Derek and Kiara alone in the desolate outpost. The main facility was Spartan but functional. Living quarters, a small mess hall, and a technical lab with outdated but serviceable equipment. Kiara immediately set to work on the chip, connecting it to an isolated data terminal, while Derek explored their temporary shelter. How long do you think we'll be stuck here? He asked, returning to the lab with 2 containers of emergency rations. Kiara didn't look up from her work. Until we understand what we are dealing with. This encryption is sophisticated. Derek set one of the containers beside her and opened his own, grimacing at the bland paste inside. And if we can't crack it? Then we will need to return to Earth Embassy and use their secure systems. She paused, finally looking at him. But that would be dangerous. If someone there planted this on you, returning could be walking into a trap. Derek considered this. Who would want to frame me? I'm not exactly high-ranking. I'm a mid-level diplomat assigned to mineral rights negotiations. Perhaps it is not about you specifically, Kiara suggested. Perhaps it is about sabotaging the treaty between our peoples. Hours passed as Kiara worked on the encryption. Derek alternated between pacing, attempting to help with the decryption, and asking increasingly personal questions about Vexari culture that Kiara deflected with practiced ease. Finally, near what passed for dawn on Zetran Delta, the terminal chimed. Encrypted data began scrolling across the screen as Kiara's 4 eyes darted back and forth, absorbing the information with increasing alarm. This is worse than I feared, she said, her skin paling to an ashen gray. This is not merely weapons research. It is a bioweapon designed to target both humans and Vexari. Derek moved to her side, staring at the complex molecular diagrams and simulation models. What? Who would develop something like that? The hegemony, Kiara replied grimly. They have been operating from the shadows for decades, manipulating conflicts between species to maintain their economic dominance. This weapon would allow them to eliminate both our peoples if the treaty were signed. And I was supposed to be caught with this information, making it look like Earth was developing it? Kiara nodded. A perfect pretext for war. The Vexari High Command would never believe Earth's denials. Derek ran a hand through his hair. We need to get this to people we can trust. Expose the plot. Agreed. But who can we trust? Kiara's 4 eyes fixed on him with intensity. Someone close to you planted this chip. A colleague, perhaps? Derek's mind raced through the possibilities. Ambassador Harrington has always supported the treaty, but his deputy, Thomas Elliot, has been strangely resistant to the negotiations from the beginning. Then we must return to the embassy and confront this Elliot, Kiara decided. But we will need a plan. Security will be heightened after your disappearance. I know the embassy's systems, Derek said. If we can reach my office, I can access the secure communication network and broadcast this evidence to both Earth and Vexari authorities simultaneously. Kiara's skin rippled with blue determination. Then we have our objective. Rest now. We move at nightfall. As Derek settled onto one of the facility's narrow cots, he found sleep elusive. The weight of what they'd discovered, and what it meant for both their species, pressed heavily on his mind. He glanced across the room where Kiara sat in a meditative posture, her breathing slow and controlled. Do Vexari dream? He asked suddenly. Kiara's upper eyes opened. Yes, though differently than humans, I suspect. What do you dream about? She was silent for so long that Derek thought she wouldn't answer. Honor, she finally said. Duty, purpose. Never about yourself, what you want. Her skin shifted subtly. Individual desires are secondary to the collective good in Vexari culture. That sounds lonely, Derek observed. It is. Our way, she replied, though something in her tone suggested uncertainty. You should sleep. Derek Reeves. Tomorrow will test us both. When darkness fell, they set out on foot toward the distant lights of the city. The terrain was treacherous, jagged rock formations and steep ravines that required careful navigation. The cold night air bit at Derek's exposed skin, though Kiara seemed unbothered by the temperature. Your dermal chromatophores, Derek said as they paused atop a ridge overlooking the sprawling cityscape below. You said they respond to emotional states. What emotion makes your skin turn pink? Kiara kept her eyes fixed on the city. We should focus on our mission. I'm just trying to understand your culture better, Derek pressed. For diplomatic purposes. A faint ripple of pink crossed her features. It indicates embarrassment, or certain other emotional responses that Vexari do not discuss casually. Ah, Derek nodded sagely. So when I commented on your butt, you weren't angry. You were embarrassed. This conversation is inappropriate, Kiara stated firmly, though the pink tinge intensified. The embassy is located in the governmental district. Here, she pointed to a collection of sleek structures near the city center. We will approach through the maintenance tunnels. Derek suppressed a smile. Lead the way, Commander. The city's outer industrial zone was sparsely patrolled, allowing them to slip past the security checkpoints with relative ease. Kiara's knowledge of urban warfare proved invaluable as she guided them through service corridors and maintenance shafts, avoiding the more heavily monitored main thoroughfares. How do you know the city so well? Derek whispered as they descended into a utility tunnel beneath the governmental district. I studied the infrastructure extensively before accepting this assignment, she replied. Knowledge is as important as strength in combat preparation. The tunnel opened into a subterranean network of pipes and conduits that fed into the various diplomatic compounds. Kiara referenced a mental map, leading them toward the Earth Embassy's power grid connection. The embassy's security system draws power from this junction, she explained, pointing to a massive transformer. We can access the maintenance corridor through that service hatch. Derek examined the hatch. It'll be locked and probably alarmed. Yes, Kiara agreed, removing a small device from her belt. But Vexari security protocols have certain consistencies that can be exploited. She attached the device to the hatch's control panel. After a tense minute, the panel flashed green, and the hatch slid open with a soft hiss. Impressive, Derek remarked. Standard infiltration training, Kiara replied, though a hint of pride colored her tone. Vexari warriors are prepared for all scenarios. They entered the embassy through its lowest level, navigating through storage areas and mechanical rooms. Derek recognized landmarks that allowed him to guide them toward the administrative wing where his office was located. There will be night security, he warned, as they approached a staff elevator. 2 guards at the security desk, and patrol rounds every 20 minutes. Kiara considered this. Can you access your office systems from anywhere else? Derek thought for a moment. Ambassador Harrington's private office has a terminal with higher clearance. It would actually be better for broadcasting the evidence. But it's even more secure. Does he trust you? Yes, he personally selected me for this assignment. Kiara nodded decisively. Then we go to the ambassador's office. If we encounter resistance, I will handle it. They waited for a patrol to pass before making their way to the upper level. The corridors were dimly lit for the night cycle, casting long shadows that provided additional cover. Derek led them to a nondescript door at the end of a hallway. Ambassador's private office, he whispered, pressing his palm to the scanner. To his surprise, it flashed green immediately. That's odd. The security protocols should have been updated after I went missing. Kiara tensed. It could be a trap. Or Harrington left it accessible hoping I'd return, Derek suggested, though uncertainty gnawed at him. The door slid open, revealing the ambassador's spacious office, and 3 figures waiting inside. Ambassador Harrington sat behind his desk, his expression grave. Beside him stood Thomas Elliot, the deputy ambassador, his hand resting casually on what Derek recognized as a concealed weapon. The third figure was a towering Vexari warrior in ceremonial armor, his skin a deep, authoritative blue. "War Commander Tyvek," Kiara breathed, immediately straightening to attention. "Commander Valshar," the imposing Vexari acknowledged. "Your disappearance with the human diplomat has caused significant diplomatic complications." Derek stepped forward. "Ambassador Harrington, we've discovered something critical. The treaty negotiations are being sabotaged." Harrington's weary eyes met Derek's. "That's a serious accusation. Reeves, where have you been? Half the security forces on Zetran Delta have been looking for you." "Someone planted classified information on me," Derek explained quickly. "Information about a bioweapon designed to target both humans and Vexari. We have evidence that the hegemony is behind it." Elliot scoffed. "That's absurd. The hegemony has been a neutral party in these negotiations." "On the surface, perhaps," Kiara interjected. "But we have decrypted the Proxima Code. It contains irrefutable evidence." War Commander Tyvek's eyes narrowed. "What evidence?" Derek moved toward the ambassador's terminal. "If I may, we can show you directly." Harrington nodded his permission, but Elliot stepped forward. "This is highly irregular, Ambassador. For all we know, they could be attempting to compromise our systems." "I trust Reeves," Harrington replied firmly. "Let him proceed." Derek accessed the terminal, while Kiara handed him the data chip. As he worked to transfer the information, he kept a careful eye on Elliot, whose discomfort was becoming increasingly evident. "The chip was planted in my diplomatic badge," Derek explained, as the data began to load. "Someone wanted me to be caught with this information, making it look like Earth was developing weapons against the Vexari." The terminal displayed the decrypted files, molecular structures of the bioweapon, test results showing its effectiveness against both human and Vexari physiology, and, most damning of all, communication logs between hegemony operatives. "This message log," Derek highlighted, "shows correspondence with someone using the codename Emissary. They reference having placed the chip with the diplomatic pawn and expecting it to be discovered during the final treaty negotiations." All eyes turned to Elliot, whose hand had moved closer to his concealed weapon. "Deputy Ambassador Elliot has been particularly opposed to this treaty from the beginning," Derek continued. "He's had access to my credentials, opportunity to plant the chip, and motive to sabotage the negotiations." "This is preposterous," Elliot sputtered. "You have no proof that I'm this emissary." "Actually," Harrington said quietly, "we do." He tapped his own console, bringing up a security recording of Elliot in his private office, speaking into an encrypted communicator. The audio was clear. "The chip has been planted. The Vexari will find it during the final inspection. Prepare for Phase 2. Elliot's face contorted with rage. He drew his weapon, but before he could aim it, Kiara moved with blinding speed. Her plasma blade hummed to life as she disarmed him with a precise strike, sending the weapon clattering across the floor. "Thomas Elliot," Harrington said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "You are hereby relieved of your position and placed under arrest for treason against Earth and conspiracy to commit genocide." Elliot laughed bitterly. "You fools! The hegemony has planned this for decades. You think arresting me changes anything? The conflict between humans and Vexari is inevitable. We're merely accelerating the inevitable." "No," Derek countered. "You're wrong. Our peoples have more in common than you realize." He turned to War Commander Tyvek. "This evidence proves that both our species were targeted. We have a common enemy, and a common future, if we choose it." Tyvek's expression remained impassive, but his skin shifted through subtle shades of blue as he processed the information. The Vexari High Command will need to review this evidence thoroughly. Of course, Harrington agreed. But in the meantime, I propose we proceed with the treaty signing as planned. It would send a powerful message to the hegemony that their attempt to divide us has failed. Tyvek considered this. There is wisdom in your suggestion, Ambassador. However, there is another matter that requires address. His 4 eyes turned to Kiara. Commander Valshar, you abandoned your post to flee with the human diplomat. Explain your actions. Kiara stood at rigid attention. War Commander, I believe the human diplomat was in danger and that vital intelligence needed to be secured. I made a tactical decision to protect both assets. You did not report to your superiors, Tyvek pointed out. You acted independently. Yes, War Commander. Tyvek's gaze intensified. Your skin betrays you, Commander. There is more to this situation than tactical considerations. Derek watched as Kiara's skin rippled with flickers of pink and purple. She was struggling with something internal, something beyond her military training. War Commander, she finally said, her voice steady, despite the emotional turmoil evident in her changing skin tones. I have developed inappropriate personal regard for the human diplomat. A heavy silence fell over the room. Derek stared at Kiara in astonishment, while Harrington and Elliot exchanged uncomfortable glances. I see, Tyvek said at last. You are aware that such cross-species attachments violate the Vexari Code of Purity. I am aware, War Commander. Tyvek turned to Derek. And you, human, do you reciprocate this inappropriate regard? Derek looked at Kiara, seeing beyond the warrior exterior to the complex individual beneath, someone who had risked everything to protect not just him, but the future of both their species. The answer came easily. Yes, he said simply. I do. Tyvek's skin darkened with displeasure. This complicates matters significantly. Commander Valshar, by your own admission, you have violated our most sacred traditions. The penalty for such a transgression is severe. I understand, War Commander, Kiara replied, her posture unwavering despite the sentence hanging over her. Derek stepped forward. War Commander, with all due respect, Commander Valshar's actions have saved countless lives, both human and Vexari. Surely that counts for something. Our laws are absolute, Tyvek stated coldly. Then, perhaps, Ambassador Harrington interjected thoughtfully, it's time for both our peoples to reconsider certain absolute positions. After all, we've just discovered a common enemy willing to eradicate us both. Perhaps old divisions and prejudices are luxuries we can no longer afford. Tyvek was silent for a long moment, his skin cycling through various shades as he deliberated. Finally, he spoke. There is precedent in our ancient texts for adaptation in times of existential threat. He focused on Kiara. Commander Valshar, your punishment will be deferred pending the formation of a new coalition against the hegemony threat. Relief washed over Derek, though he knew this was merely a temporary reprieve. Ambassador Harrington, Tyvek continued, I propose an extension of our treaty to include a formal military alliance. The hegemony has revealed their hand. We must respond accordingly. Harrington nodded solemnly. I believe Earth's leadership will agree. We can begin drafting the expanded treaty immediately. While the two leaders discussed the details, guards were summoned to take Elliot into custody. Derek moved to Kiara's side. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. Admit your feelings for me. Her skin rippled with faint pink. It was the truth, and Vexari do not lie, even when the truth is inconvenient. What happens now, with us, I mean? Kiara's 4 eyes met his. I do not know. No Vexari has ever formally bonded with a human. Formally bonded? Derek repeated, raising an eyebrow. Before she could respond, Ambassador Harrington called them over. Reeves, Commander Valshar, your actions have potentially saved both our species. In recognition of this, And to symbolize our new alliance, War Commander Tyvek and I have agreed that you two should serve as official cross-cultural envoys for the Coalition. A fitting assignment, Tyvek agreed, though his tone suggested he was not entirely comfortable with the arrangement. And it will allow us to monitor this unprecedented situation. Derek glanced at Kiara, whose expression remained professionally neutral, despite the rainbow of emotions playing across her skin. We would be honored to serve in this capacity, he replied, for both of them. 3 weeks later, the Human Vexari Defense Coalition was officially established. The signing ceremony took place in a ceremonial garden on the embassy grounds, where 3 moons cast their light on a reflective pool surrounded by bioluminescent flora. Representatives from both species gathered to witness the historic event. Derek, dressed in formal diplomatic attire, stood beside Kiara, who wore ceremonial Vexari armor polished to a mirror shine. Their new roles as cross-cultural envoys had kept them busy with coalition-building activities, leaving little time to explore their personal relationship. Ambassador Harrington completed his signature on the treaty document with a flourish, then handed the stylus to War Commander Tyvek, who added his own mark. Applause rippled through the assembled dignitaries. This marks a new chapter in our shared history, Harrington announced. And in recognition of the special circumstances that brought us to this moment, War Commander Tyvek has agreed to perform a traditional Vexari unity ceremony for our 2 envoys, whose unique bond symbolizes the future we envision. Murmurs of surprise spread through the crowd. Derek turned to Kiara in astonishment. Unity ceremony? Is that what I think it is? Kiara's skin flushed with vibrant patterns of blue and pink. It is a ritual traditionally reserved for Vexari warrior pairs, who have proven their commitment to each other through shared battle. It is the closest equivalent to what humans would call marriage. Derek's eyes widened. And you agreed to this? It was War Commander Tyvek's suggestion, she replied, her voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. A political symbol to strengthen the coalition. Just political, Derek pressed gently. Her skin rippled with emotion. No, she admitted. Not just political. War Commander Tyvek approached, his ceremonial robes flowing around his imposing frame. Are you prepared for the ritual, Commander Valshar? It has never been performed with a non-Vexari participant. I am prepared, War Commander, she replied formally. And you, human. Tyvek turned to Derek. Do you understand the significance of this bond in Vexari culture? It is not entered into lightly, nor dissolved without grave consequences. Derek met the War Commander's 4-eyed gaze steadily. I understand it's a commitment to stand together, to protect each other, and to face whatever comes as one. In that sense, it's not so different from human traditions. Tyvek seemed satisfied with this response. Very well, we shall proceed. The ceremony began with an ancient Vexari chant, the harmonics of which seemed to vibrate through Derek's very bones. Kiara explained in whispers that it told the legend of the first warrior bond, formed during the Great War that had nearly destroyed Vexari civilization millennia ago. Next came the exchange of symbols. In place of the traditional Vexari blood daggers, Kiara presented Derek with a ceremonial plasma blade, smaller than her own, but crafted with the same care. Derek, having consulted with Ambassador Harrington on an appropriate human tradition, offered Kiara a soft silken scarf, explaining that on Earth, such tokens represented protection and care. The final stage requires a physical demonstration of unity, Tyvek announced. Traditionally, this involves synchronized combat movements, but given the circumstances... I've been practicing, Derek interjected, surprising both Tyvek and Kiara. He'd spent hours secretly training with a junior Vexari warrior to learn the basic forms. Kiara's skin brightened with pleased surprise as Derek took position beside her. Though his movements lacked her fluid grace, he matched her rhythm as they performed the ancient combat sequence together. when their blades crossed in the final position, symbolizing strength through unity. A approving murmur rippled through the Vexari delegation. "The bond is acknowledged," Tyvek declared, his tone carrying both official approval and personal amazement. "From this moment, you are recognized as—" A piercing alarm cut through the ceremony. The garden's lighting shifted to emergency red as security personnel rushed to defensive positions. "Proximity alert," a Vexari security officer reported. "Multiple hegemony vessels approaching the Cygnus Gate. Attack formation confirmed." War Commander Tyvek immediately shifted from ceremonial leader to military commander. "All warriors to battle stations! Civilian evacuation protocols activated!" Ambassador Harrington was already coordinating with Earth security forces. "Defensive shields at maximum. Get me a direct line to Earth Command." In the chaos, Derek found Kiara's hand. Their fingers intertwined. Human and Vexari joined in the face of common danger. They had just enough time to complete the final ritual gesture, pressing their foreheads together in acknowledgement of their bond. "It seems our honeymoon will have to wait," Derek said with a wry smile, the diplomatic ring still warm on his finger. Kiara's skin glowed with a deep, determined blue. "First, we fight. Then, we celebrate." They shared a brief, unprecedented cross-species kiss before racing toward the command center, still in their ceremonial attire. The hegemony had made their move, but they would face a unified response they hadn't anticipated. The bond between Derek and Kiara, forged through an inappropriate comment, a well-deserved slap, and a shared mission to save their peoples, now symbolized something greater: the promise that together they could face whatever the galaxy threw at them. As they ran, Derek couldn't help but reflect on how a single, ill-advised comment about an alien warrior's posterior had somehow led to this moment. Racing to defend two civilizations, newly bonded to a fierce Vexari commander, and feeling more alive than he ever had as a mid-level diplomat shuffling mining permits. Sometimes, he thought, the most profound diplomatic breakthroughs began with the most undignified missteps.